I'm about to say something I practically never say. Especially not about Apple. Which makes it feel downright bizarre coming from me. And that's that the upcoming iPhone 18 could legitimately shake up everything we've come to expect from the company. Not because it's suddenly flawless or some earth-shattering revolution, but purely because it appears poised to shatter Apple's own ultra-predictable annual pattern in a way they rarely dare. And history shows that whenever Cupertino throws out its sacred playbook, the results demand attention. It either lands as a triumphant leap forward or crashes in spectacular fashion. For years we've been conditioned to the ritual. New iPhones never drop in isolation. They arrive bundled with genuine improvements alongside a laundry list of frustrating trade-offs, instantly transforming last year's cutting-edge model into socially obsolete overnight, which stings extra hard if you recently splurged on an iPhone 17, 17 Pro, or 17 Pro Max because the second the new lineup hits, resale values plummet as demand floods toward the latest release while supply of the old ones overflows the market. Your device will run just as smoothly as ever. Full software support, no internal downgrades, but culturally it becomes yesterday's news, and for the sizable crowd that buys iPhones mainly to flaunt having the newest status symbol, because nothing screams success like taking on 24-month financing for a marginally thinner bezel, right? That perceived emotion hits harder than any spec sheet ever could. Yet the potential shifts with the iPhone 18 run far deeper than just a model number bump and the usual post-launch price drops. Credible leaks suggest this could permanently redefine the iconic iPhone silhouette and feature set, reintroducing a fingerprint reader embedded under the display for the first time in years, finally giving users a reliable backup to Face ID, delivering genuinely fast charging speeds and a substantially larger battery that might actually survive a full day of heavy use without constant anxiety, and, most controversially, swapping the signature notch or dynamic island for a single punch hole. Front camera straight out of 2019 mid-range Android phones, a visual departure that would erase the last traces of classic iPhone design language in the same dramatic way the physical home button vanished from iPhone 8 to X or the notch evolved into the pill-shaped island. Some diehards are still mentally clinging to that old notch like it's sacred. All of this stems from a highly respected leaker with an enviable track record of accurate iPhone predictions over the years, hinting that Apple might finally be responding to years of criticism about stagnant innovation, premium pricing, and lagging behind Android in practical features like battery life and charging, potentially offering a device that not only looks different but delivers real-world value without the usual, because we're Apple, markup. That means there's a pretty high chance we'll finally see a front design that looks radically different from the current generation, at least when viewing it head-on, while the back, aside from potential new colors, would be virtually indistinguishable from recent models, with the biggest visual overhaul centered on ditching the dynamic island entirely for a single punch-hole selfie camera and hiding all the Face ID sensors completely under the display, finally giving the iPhone a cleaner, more modern face that many have been begging for after years of boredom with a near-identical look stretching all the way back to the iPhone 14 Pro, because apparently copying your own homework for half a decade is peak innovation, right? On the plus side, it's about time Apple shook things up. Plenty of users have been outright exhausted by the stagnant design language, and this shift could feel refreshing, though whether it's truly necessary or just Apple playing catch-up to Android trends from 2019 is up for debate. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Does Apple desperately need this redesign, and more importantly, is a basic punch hole the right move? Internally, we're looking at the new A20 Pro chip engineered with heavy AI focus. Hilariously, some rumors even joke about Google-powered on-device intelligence sneaking in. A bump to 12 GB of RAM for smoother multitasking, fresh color options, and little else changing in terms of screen sizes, battery capacities, or overall build, meaning the core experience stays comfortably familiar. The real wildcard is pricing. Credible leaks suggest the top-tier iPhone 18 Pro Max could easily eclipse $2,000, with some extreme estimates pushing past that, potentially making it the most expensive iPhone ever while ironically representing the opposite of what we've come to expect from Apple's recent refinement over revolution era, where new releases often feel like same phone, slightly tweaked, rather than genuine leaps, because groundbreaking external changes, like a bigger camera bump, sell easier than invisible upgrades like better cooling or processors. In truth, this launch won't suddenly make older models like the iPhone 17, 16, or even 15 obsolete. They'll still perform brilliantly with years of software support ahead, but they'll become incredible value propositions as prices drop sharply to clear inventory, turning the new release into the best thing that could happen for budget-conscious buyers who've been waiting to snag last year's flagship at a discount. The classic Apple cycle. Launch the revolutionary new one so everyone can finally afford the perfectly good old one. So, will the iPhone 18 actually be worth it? Or are we once again facing the same device with fancy makeup? If you already own a 16 or 17, skip the upgrade entirely. You won't notice meaningful real-world differences. But if this is your first iPhone or you're jumping from something ancient, it could feel like a solid leap. And let's be honest, something no YouTuber dares say out loud. Apple isn't truly innovating here. They're just belatedly adopting features the rest of the industry mastered years ago and charging you a fortune as if it's pure sorcery. That's been their playbook forever. If you're shopping for a great phone in 2026 without falling for the hype, check out my other video where I recommend 7 of the absolute best options I've personally tested extensively. Should I really throw my S25 Ultra in the trash just because the S26 is coming? A close friend actually told me that recently, joking that Samsung is finally about to deliver the massive leap we've all been waiting for years, so if you're rocking an S22, S23, S24, or S25 in any variant, this video is specifically for you. I'm going to give you a straight, no BS answer on whether it's worth upgrading to the upcoming model. Not some sponsored fluff piece where Samsung flies me out to an event and I pretend everything's revolutionary, but real talk, Depper Resurrection style. Honest, concise, and zero hype. Let's start with the elephant in the room. Older Galaxy S generations still have features that newer ones mysteriously lost, like the S Pen with built-in Bluetooth connectivity that Samsung quietly axed without any real explanation. Super handy for things like advancing slides during presentations, remotely triggering the shutter for group photos, or starting video recordings hands-free when your phone's on a tripod. Yet somehow the fanboys rush in with, "It's just a useless gimmick," until they realize it actually wasn't, because apparently turning your $1,500 phone into a fancy remote is now considered outdated tech, right? The good news is that, at least based on leaks so far, about 60% confirmed, prices aren't expected to jump. The S26 lineup should launch at roughly the same cost as the S25 series, so you can cancel that kidney removal surgery for now. But don't get too excited. Fast charging might finally creep up to a respectable 60W, better late than never, I guess, after Android competitors have been lapping them for years. Though battery capacity is almost certainly staying stuck at the same levels we've had for several generations, with zero chance of seeing anything like 6,000 mAh. Most of the meaningful changes appear to be software-focused. Heavier AI integration, a supposedly more optimized One UI with less bloatware, and a bunch of flashy AI tricks that 90% of users will try once and forget about. Many of which will eventually trickle down to older, cheaper Galaxy models anyway. Visually and hardware-wise, the camera system, sensors, lenses, everything, is expected to be 99% identical, which honestly makes you wonder why Samsung isn't paying closer attention to what brands like OnePlus, Vivo, or Huawei are pulling off right now with genuinely innovative optics and processing. My advice remains the same as always. I'm not saying flat out, don't buy it, but definitely don't rush to be among the first in line on launch day, because understanding Samsung's peculiar release logic is key to avoiding regret, and that's exactly what we'll dive into next. Samsung's core philosophy has always been about building devices that stand the test of time rather than ones that blow everyone away on launch day. Much like Apple's approach of small, polished improvements paired with legendary long-term durability and support, which is precisely why models like my own S25 Ultra, or even the S24, S23, and S22, remain absolutely stellar choices in 2026, with virtually no logical reason to upgrade to the incoming S26 beyond pure fanboy enthusiasm or the irresistible urge to flex the newest toy, because nothing says I'm practical like dropping flagship cash on marginally better AI doodles, right? The real magic happens post-launch, when these hyped-up phones inevitably suffer a dramatic price plunge. Not because they suddenly become bad, but due to classic supply and demand economics I broke down in yesterday's video comparing the 15T Pro against the S25 Ultra and iPhone 17 Pro Max. Samsung pours insane money into marketing blitzes and an army of influencers, artificially inflating perceived demand while deliberately creating initial scarcity to keep launch prices sky high, making the device feel ultra-exclusive until, a few months later, the bubble inevitably bursts, supply floods the market, and prices tumble. Bad news for resellers, but fantastic for smart buyers like you, who get a near-identical, ultra-durable Galaxy Ultra that'll easily last years without forcing you to sell a vital organ. I know my audience well enough to bet that many of you watching right now are the savvy ones who've been playing this exact game since I started preaching it back in 2018, patiently waiting for that sweet spot discount while the trend chasers pay full price and never learn, turning that tired meme into reality. New S26 drops, S25 prices crash. Time to finally grab the S24. Ultimately, Samsung's high-end Galaxies benefit from exceptionally long software update cycles that keep them relevant and secure for years, combined with rock-solid construction designed to handle daily abuse and more, plus the fact that since 2022, year-over-year hardware changes have grown increasingly minimal, meaning the S26 won't represent any dramatic leap forward and instead turns every recent predecessor into an outstanding value proposition as their street prices adjust downward with the new release. But if you're still itching to get your hands on the S26 specifically without overpaying, let's talk about the smartest timing to actually pull the trigger. So when exactly should you pull the trigger on the Galaxy S26? My personal strategy, and the one I've followed successfully for years, is to wait patiently until the global rollout is complete, then count another 4 to 7 months before even considering it, because by that point prices often plummet to nearly half the launch tag, or even lower with deals, turning what starts as an overpriced hype machine into a genuine bargain without sacrificing much at all. I can say this with confidence because I've been buying Galaxy flagships since the S10 era, and this depreciation pattern repeats almost like clockwork year after year. Especially in generations like this one that lack a true wow factor, no dramatic camera overhaul, no bold redesign, no naming shift like the jump from S10 to S20 that actually felt revolutionary. Instead, we're getting the same battery capacities we've had forever. No meaningful charging speed breakthrough beyond a modest bump. And, hilariously, still no Bluetooth connectivity in the S Pen that older models proudly offered. But hey, at least they're piling on more AI gimmicks nobody asked for, as if we're all desperately waiting for on-device circle to search when ChatGPT already lives in everyone's pocket for free. Groundbreaking innovation truly. That's why I strongly recommend holding onto your S22, S23, S24, or S25. They're built like tanks with premium materials, receive ridiculously long software support that keeps them fresh and secure for years, and deliver 95% of the flagship experience without the launch day tax. Rushing to upgrade here would be purely emotional, not logical. Of course, 2026 is stacked with way more exciting and value-packed alternatives across the Android landscape that actually push boundaries without the Samsung premium markup, and after personally testing hundreds of devices, I've narrowed it down to just 7 absolute standouts worth your money right now. Tap that info card popping up in the center of your screen before it vanishes to check out my full recommendations.